Evening of Performance. This is our first ever virtual Evening of Performance here at Jefferson State Community College. Brief introduction, my name is Zachary Alexander. I teach history at the college. I have played but a minor role, I assure you, in what will be a terrific hour and a half of debate, drama, and literary offerings from three great organizations on campus. In between each of the three groups' respective performance efforts, I will be introducing them separately. So let me start by introducing the first of our three groups, the Jefferson State Community College Speech and Debate Team. And I will turn it over now to the team director and instructor of speech communications at Jefferson State, Janice Rowley. Janice?
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Thanks to you, Leslie, and Katie for having this happen this year virtually. I had to ask Zach a little bit ago how long we've been doing the Evening of Performance, and he said he thinks it's 7 years. So I'm super excited that we continue to do it and that we are able to do it virtually. And I'd like to thank everybody involved, students, faculty, everybody who's helping make this happen. Speaking of doing things virtually, the speech and debate team have had a very different experience this past year with our competition. We are lucky that we still are able to compete, but we are competing in virtual debate tournaments. So what you're going to see tonight is very similar to what it actually looks like at a real tournament, with the exception that there is a much bigger audience than we usually have at an online debate tournament. And what you're going to see is a debate with two of our students, Zavon Watts and Daniel Davis, and we perform a type of debate called IPDA, International Public Debate Association. It is an impromptu style of debate where students get a different topic every single time. They have 30 minutes to research, come up with arguments, then they walk in, whether virtually or in person, and they compete against a student from another team. The debates last 26 minutes, and at a typical tournament, they will have 6 preliminary rounds with 6 different topics and 6 different competitors, and then the top students will then break into elimination rounds. Even with the drastic change in format, I'm super excited to say that currently the Jeff State Speech and Debate Team is ranked 2nd place among all community colleges in the nation in IPDA debate. So these students are really working hard, and I'm so proud of them. And I'm going to turn it over now to Zavon Watts, who's going to be the affirmative speaker, and he will start this debate out. So Zavon, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Daniel, thumbs up. Can you hear me? Awesome. All right. So before I start my timer, my first speech, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. There's a lot of people here. Even though I'm kind of used to debating, I'm still a little bit nervous. So just hang in there. Hopefully, we give you an entertaining debate, and also it's informative. And we just thought this topic would be relevant to Jeff State, and you'll see why in a minute, and a new kind of team that we have at Jeff State, and we just wanted to shout them out a little bit. So with that being said, my first speech is 5 minutes, so I'll go ahead and get started. So 5 minutes on the clock starting now. So again, thank you guys for coming out tonight. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it's an interesting debate. So I'll just get into today's topic today. Our resolution, our topic that we're going to be talking about is esports should be an Olympic event. So again, we thought esports would be relevant to Jeff State because there is a new esports team. We wanted to kind of shout them out. And also with the new COVID world, everything's become more digital. So esports has become something that's popped up in the Olympics and something that's kind of contentious. So I've got 3 arguments to give you today in arguing the affirmative. So I will be supporting the resolution. Esports should be an Olympic event. And so before I go over those 3 arguments, I have to define a few terms and offer a weighing mechanism. A weighing mechanism is how we're going to judge today's debate, the lens on how we're going to view today's debate. So firstly, the definitions. Esports, according to Oxford Dictionary, is a multiplayer video game played competitively for spectators and it's typically for professional gamers, and it originated in South Korea. Should be, meaning ought to be, or it's a good idea to be, and Olympic event. So this is from Britannica. The Olympics, of course, the Olympics is like an international competition, sportsmanship competition where everybody gets together and competes in good fun and sportsmanship. And so a sport, there's obviously the sport, such as skiing, basketball, soccer, etc. There's a discipline, how they categorize these events. There's a discipline. So take skiing, for example. There's mountain skiing, there's cross-country skiing, there's all different kinds of skiing. And so an event is that actual competition. So I will be arguing, as I'll get to later, I'll be arguing that esports should be an event that should be incorporated through each sport in the Olympics. So there should be, say, an esports baseball or an esports soccer, stuff like that. So to outline what I'm going to be talking about today, I've got three contentions, three arguments. My first argument or contention is going to be the plan, how we're going to start this process, how we're going to do it. My second is going to be on broadening audience and revenue. And my third is the COVID culture and post-pandemic world. So for my first contention on the plan, there's actually already an international esports federation, and you can go to the website itself. And it essentially mirrors the Olympic administration in that whole process. So you apply within your own country, and you can also compete with other countries in other countries, representing another country, as long as you haven't competed in a set amount of time. The Olympics have already said that esports, if they were to be implemented into the Olympics, that it would come from traditional sports first. So they would, again, basically be virtual esports, baseball, virtual soccer, et cetera, things like that. And so the International Olympic Committee has also previously declared that video games could be considered sports. And that was from Business Insider just of last year. So we already kind of have a basis for what kind of sports that could be included into these esports and how it'd be administered. It'd be administered through the Olympics and the International Esports Federation. And we'd be including virtual components of these sports throughout each competition. So going into my second argument on broadening revenue, audience and revenue. So according to the Center for Digital Life from 2018, older age groups view the Olympics at higher rates than younger people, though across the general population, across the board, viewership at the Olympics is still relatively low. And according to Business Insider from 2018, 62% of esports viewers were aged 18 to 34, and 56% of Gen Z men said that non-traditional sports like esports are relevant to their generation. Also, viewership of esports is expected to grow by 600 million by 2023. So that's just in time for the 2024 Olympics. And according to Forbes from 2018, esports made, just in 2018 alone, $150 billion. So the Olympics have a chance to bring in fresh new viewers, hundreds of millions of fresh new faces, hundreds and competitors, hundreds of millions of viewers, and capture, a new generation of audience members and make tons of billions of dollars from it. So this is all what's going to be good for the Olympics. That's the weighing mechanism today, what's best for the Olympics. So whichever side can prove that their side is beneficial to the Olympics will win this debate. So this is all good for the Olympics because it creates revenue and it creates longevity so that the Olympics is able to stay relevant in the future. And going into relevancy, into my last argument, my third argument, COVID culture in the post-pandemic world. So according to TechCrunch from 2020 in June, again, the Olympics were already originally supposed to be showcased in the esports, esports was already supposed to be showcased in the Olympics, but it got pushed back. And so with the world, because of COVID becoming more digital and more online and streaming becoming more accessible, you open up this broader audience, and esports and the Olympics become more accessible to millions of people, and some people who can't leave their homes. Esports can be something that can be done in your home. And so imagine accessibility for disabled people, just the strides they'd be able to make competing alongside another equally Olympic competitor. And thank you. So I'll stand down for cross-ex.
All right, 2 minutes on the clock for cross-examination. Zavon, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, I only have a few brief questions to go over. I don't believe I'll need the entire time for the 2 minutes. First, I want to go over the definitions. You said there is a sport, a discipline, and an event. A sport would be, an event would be like the technique within the sport, like the specific style of skiing, and the event would be the actual competition taking place. Is that right?
A discipline would be the technique or the style.
Yeah, the discipline would be the technique, and the event would be that discipline being taken out. But gotcha. And the weighing mechanism we agree on is what's best for the Olympics. The tagline for your first contention was the plan, right? And the Olympic, there's a esports committee and there's an Olympic committee, and they will just work together to make it happen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you believe Jenga should be added to the Olympics?
As recognized by the International Olympic Committee, I don't think it's recognized as a sport, so no.
Okay, since Jenga is not recognized as a sport, we should not add Jenga to the Olympics. Gotcha. That's all the questions I have.
All right.
Before I begin my clock, I do want to extend the regular thank yous to everybody, all the faculty that put this together, and all the students in attendance. I see we got a large audience, which is really great because normally on these online things, we don't get a lot of people to participate. So I'm glad that everyone's come out tonight and agree with Savannah, hopefully put together an entertaining debate for you. So let me go ahead and begin my clock for the first speech now. I want to begin the negative side of today's debate with a quote from three-time Olympic world champion in BMX, Sarah Walker. If I want to practice any Olympic discipline, if I wanted to try one of them, I actually have to go out and do it. I have to be active. Where gaming is right now, if I was inspired to be a gamer, my first step is to go home and sit on the couch. And this quote echoes the sentiment of many Olympians. And like them, I do not believe esports should be an Olympic event. I do accept my opponent's definition and the weighing mechanism, and this weighing mechanism is very important. It's how you as an audience should weigh your decision of who wins today's debate. It's the lens through which we should look at every argument. What's best for the Olympics? The affirmative believes what's best for the Olympics is short-term gain and increased revenue. I believe what's best for the Olympics is to maintain their integrity, maintain what makes them them, what makes the Olympics, ergo the physical activity. So I'm going to first provide refutations to my opponent's three arguments. Then I'm going to provide two arguments that don't directly clash with my opponent's arguments, but go against the resolution and prove why why esports should not be added to the Olympics. So first, the plan. I do see problems with the plan. First of all, being the Olympics is national teams competing against each other, so there's no national recognized team for the Olympics for each of these nations. However, I do believe that problem could be solved, and I do believe esports could be added. The problem is not whether or not they could be added, the problem is whether or not they should be added, and I do not believe they should be. That brings me to my opponent's second contention of the audience, increased audience and revenue. First of all, I don't believe this is necessarily proven in the affirmative case, given the fact that the most popular esports in the world are Dota and League of Legends, both of which require the audience member to have an extensive knowledge of the backstory for both of those games before they can enjoy watching the games being played. So a regular audience member might not follow esports and therefore might not understand what's going on when they watch an esports event. So I don't know that it's been proven that revenue would be increased and audiences would be increased. However, even if you buy that argument from my opponent, even if you believe revenue would be increased, that does not prove esports should be added because I don't deny short-term gains could be made. What I see is a long-term loss in value, loss in integrity of what makes the Olympics the Olympics. And I'll get into that more in my case arguments. The third contention for my opponent is COVID culture, the post-pandemic world. Basically, since we're all digital now, we should be adding digital options for everything. COVID, there's a big problem that people experience in times of crisis where they take active action now and they believe that action should be extended post-crisis. But this is not the correct way to go about things. Just because people are all online now and there's a big digital culture now does not mean that will extend past the pandemic. The pandemic and the crisis will eventually end, and we shouldn't be making long-term projections based off what people are doing now during the crisis. So that brings me to my two arguments against the resolution. First is that it's not a sport, and second is that it's a losing tradition. Let's go over not a sport first. The definition of a sport, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another for entertainment. I don't doubt that there's serious skill in esports. What I do doubt strongly is that there's physical exertion involved in esports. And I bring this up in cross-examination. You heard me ask my opponent sort of outlandish question, should Jenga be added to the Olympics? I did this for a reason. There's a 2016 study in Quest, the Journal of National Association for Kinesiology in Higher Education. They took that block building game, Jenga, and pointed out that there is precision and dexterity involved in playing it. Jenga requires precision and dexterity because each player has to move one block from the bottom to the top without disturbing the structure. Lots of people argue that fine motor movements in your handheld controller amount to physical exertion. However, they've noted physical exertion in Jenga, which my opponent and I both agree should not be involved in the Olympics. And so just because there's some type of physical activity does not mean physical exertion, especially not on the level we see in traditional Olympic athletes. And that brings me to my second argument of losing tradition. I have 2 points to make under this. First is the Olympics history. According to NeuroTracker, going back to ancient Greece, the Olympics have always symbolized the pursuit of physical perfection. When we watch the Olympics, we watch people doing things that we just can't do as normal human beings. And they spend their entire lives dedicated to building that craft and putting their body through hell to become superhero wouldn't be the right word, but certainly something other than a regular human. And that type of dedication, that type of otherworldliness is not something that you would see in a very skilled chess player. It's not something you would see in a very skilled esports player. That brings me to my last point under this losing tradition, the current administration. Just because the current administration is considering something possibly to be added does not mean that is what's best for the Olympics. The current administration is not they are profit driven. They are revenue driven. And if you believe that revenue is the best thing for the Olympics, I would argue strongly against that. I would argue that what's best for the Olympics is maybe not what the current administration is doing, but what the current administration should be doing, which is maintaining their integrity, maintaining a sport being a sport, and maintaining physical activity being a strong requirement, a barrier to entry for becoming an Olympic event. Thank you.
All right, you ready?
Ready?
All right, so 2 minutes for cross-examination starting now. So thank you for giving that speech. I've got a few questions for you today and then we'll be done. So your argument was that esports is not a sport, correct? And so it's not a sport because it's not active enough?
Right.
Okay. Is chess a sport?
No.
All right, and would you consider like speed racing or NASCAR racing as a sport?
I'm not sure.
Okay, and do you know if Jenga is being recognized as a sport by the Olympics?
No, which is clear because there's some physical movement involved in Jenga and there's some physical movement involved in esports. And esports is potentially bringing in more revenue than Jenga would. So the current administration is looking at what's going to bring in more revenue, which I know the affirmative might believe that's a good thing, but as the negation, I do not believe that's what's best for the Olympics.
Okay, and do you, like just taking esports out of the context, do you believe right now that the Olympics, their integrity, their tradition is declining now?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly, if you watch the documentary on Netflix, Icarus, you will see exactly how that integrity is declining. They will allow things that build on revenue and not necessarily what's best for sportsmanship or the Olympics. They allowed the Russian government to break the rules, and yet there was no consequences for the Russian athletes. They still participated in the following Olympics, even though an independent investigation said that Russia should not. And I'll go into more on that further if you'd like to.
I've just got one more question. So you mentioned Dota and League of Legends as esports, correct? As examples.
Right, by the esports organizations that you mentioned, those are the most popular ones that are being played right now.
Okay. All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oops. All right. Daniel, you're ready? All right. So 3 minutes for my second speech for rebuttal, starting now. So again, I'd like to thank my opponent for giving that speech and giving me something to clash with. Just to talk over some of the things that I'm going to talk about, outline some of the things I'll talk about. I'll go over some of the things, the points that my opponent mentioned, and then try and reaffirm my own arguments. So to touch on some of the things that my opponent mentioned, my opponent said, that esports, in his off-case arguments, it's not a sport, and so I would argue that of course, I'm arguing that it is a sport. And in cross-ex, I asked my opponent, is chess a sport? And he said no. However, according to chess.com from 2020, the International Olympic Committee has actually recognized chess as a sport, and it's expected to be implemented in future Olympics. And I also asked, my opponent, we keep bringing up Jenga, and I asked my opponent, if he knows if Jenga is recognized by the Olympics as a sport, and it's not. So I don't see really the relevance of bringing in Jenga because it's not being recognized as a sport. Whereas with, back to my first contention on the plan, the Olympics, according to Business Insider, have said that any esports that would be implemented would be from traditional sports, and they've declared that competitive video games could be considered sports. They would just have to come from those traditional sports. And so in context, I asked my opponent again, also that if he mentioned Dota and League of Legends as esports, and yes, those are maybe one of the most popular esports out there, but again, we're going to be taking traditional sports into the esports realm. So we would be taking things like boxing and soccer and baseball into the virtual world, instead of as a separate option, instead of having that physical instead of having the physical sport. And my opponent, also, mentioned that the Olympics right now is losing their tradition and losing their integrity because of certain events, and that by adding esports, because they're so revenue driven, that this would destroy their integrity. But I really don't see how that would happen, because by adding esports, you would be creating longevity. You would be adding a broader audience, and you would be adding revenue on top of that. It's not just about the revenue. It's about staying relevant and capturing an audience and being able to inspire an audience to stay active and stay fit. And through esports and through connecting through a younger generation, you can do that. Again, because through my second point about broadening audience and revenue, 62% of those viewers are 18 to 34, and 56% of Gen Z men said that esports is important to their generation. So if they see these esports players being active as esports players, this could inspire more people to be more active and more people to go out and enjoy the Olympics. And also, just to reaffirm my last argument about COVID culture, and my opponent said that we shouldn't base our decisions off of one event or one massive thing that's happening. But I mentioned the world is becoming, regardless of COVID, the world's becoming more digitalized, and it's becoming more online. And so this would benefit the Olympics because they're able to stay relevant, as I keep saying.
Everyone's ready. I will go and begin. You ready, Zvon? All right, this is the last time you hear the negative speak in today's debate, so thank you all for coming out. I'm going to go over some things my opponent said in his last speech, provide you with some voters, which are just very brief summations on why you should feel confident in casting your ballot for the negative and not adding esports to the Olympics. So, and then I will let my opponent give his final speech. So to begin with, my opponent said in his last speech that the Olympic Committee recognizes chess, it does not recognize Jenga. And that's a good reason why maybe chess should be even added to the Olympics. Well, again, we shouldn't be taking what the International Olympic Committee says as the be all end all. Again, and this is something I talked about in cross-examination. I'm not adding a new argument here. I'm just pointing out that in that documentary Icarus, you will see that the Russian government actually engaged in cheating. They faked tests to show that all of their athletes who were on anabolic steroids, they made the test look like they were not. And an independent investigation found that this was absolutely the case, and suggested that Russia not be allowed to compete in the 2016 Olympics in Rio. However, the Olympic Committee disregarded that because the Olympic Committee today is more concerned with money than maintaining their integrity. This is clearly a problem. So just because the Olympic Committee believes they should add esports, and just because the Olympic Committee may believe they should add chess even, doesn't mean these things are good for the Olympics. Doesn't mean these things are what's best for the Olympics. Just because the current administration thinks it does not mean it's what's best for it. Now, my opponent, let's go and go over his plan. He says that we would be adding esports. It wouldn't be Dota or League of Legends. It would just be virtual baseball or virtual soccer. Well, that might increase viewership of digital soccer, digital baseball. I don't know if that's going to increase the viewership of physical baseball or physical soccer. Why even play physical sports if we're just going to watch the video version of it to begin with? So I don't see this as increasing the value of the Olympics. I don't believe this is good for the Olympics. I think this is just switching something up because it's the new popular thing. And I don't believe that's what's best for the integrity of the Olympics. So going over my opponent's third contention, we respond saying that this is moving to the digital age, that this is good because we're all moving digital. It could be the case that there is, well, obviously there's more online now than there was 50 years ago, but if we're asking the Olympics to evolve into a digital space, what we're doing is asking the Olympics to evolve into something they're not, right? The Olympics is a physical activity sport. It's not something that's a digital activity. It's something that involves your body to physically move. It's something that inspires you to achieve something physically that you normally wouldn't be able to achieve. It inspires you to get active. The virtual competition inspires you to sit on the couch, right? And that's not necessarily my words. That's the words of Olympic athlete Sarah Walker, which I brought up in the beginning of the debate. Olympics, esports is great for people who like to watch games, and the Olympics is great for people who like to watch physical activity. And you can like both, but why do we have to meld the two together? Why can't we have separate? They're both doing great on their own. Why do we need to meld them together? So with that being said, I'm going to go over some voters. Again, these are just small summations of why you should believe the negative in today's debate. First is the weighing mechanism. I said in the beginning of my speech, this is very important to today's debate. This is how you as an audience weigh your decision of who wins today's debate. All the arguments can be boiled down to what is best for the Olympics. The affirmative believes what's best for the Olympics is to build revenue and make more money and become more popular in the near term. As the negative, I'm showing that what's best for the Olympics really is to maintain what they are, maintain who they are, not to be changed by current trends, not to be changed into some completely digitalized thing when it's always been about physical activity. Again, digital activity is great, but physical activity is what the Olympics is all about. There's no reason to change it just because it could make them more money. And my second voter is the burden of proof. This is a little bit technical, but I just want to shout this out so you understand. The affirmative has the burden to prove the resolution. The negative has the burden to argue against the affirmative, basically. The affirmative has to show beyond reasonable doubt that esports should definitely be added as an Olympic event. As the negative, I've poked holes in that narrative throughout this debate to show, at best, we can't trust that to be definitely the case. The burden of proof is on the affirmative to prove this to you. If you have doubts about this, if you think, yeah, you know what, they might make money, but I think they should probably maintain a little bit of who they are. They should probably focus on improving their current administration and focusing on physical activity. I urge you to vote for the negative in today's debate. With that, I will stand down for my opponent's final speech. Thank you all for coming out.
All right, you ready? All right, so 3 minutes for my last speech, 3 minutes starting now. So again, thank you for giving that speech. And since this is my last time speaking as the affirmative, I'd just like to again thank everybody for coming out. And hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you gained some new insight on the Olympics and esports and how all this goes. So again, I'll just briefly go over some of the things that my opponent mentioned. Reaffirm again, reoffer my contentions and say why they still stand, and offer up those voters as to why we should go ahead and vote for the affirmative, vote for including esports into the Olympics. Oh, sorry, my house phone's ringing. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. So just to talk about some of the things that my opponent mentioned, he keeps bringing up, it's not really in the integrity or in the culture of the Olympics to add esports into the Olympics because it's not physical enough, basically, and that we'd be making short-term gains, basically short-term audience gains and revenue gains in favor of long-term loss of integrity and culture. And I don't really see that happening. I don't see any negatives from bringing esports into the Olympics. Yes, esports may not need the Olympics, but the Olympics do need esports. And so with the Olympics bringing in esports, they gain all of this, a new generation of audience members. As I said in my second contingent about broadening audience and revenue, we're bringing in, it's not just a trend that my opponent is saying that esports is, and that we should just hop on this trend. The Olympics should hop on this trend. As I mentioned, by 2023, there's expected to be around 600 million viewers of esports. And so this would be just in time for the 2024 Olympics. And this would be good for the Olympics because, again, they achieved that longevity that they've been so desperately been in need of because of their declining viewership and declining revenue. Again, the Forbes of 2018 mentions just in 2018 alone, the Olympics made $150 billion, or the esports made $150 billion. And so the Olympics needs that money, and it would be good for them in the long term to add esports because of this. And and just to again reaffirm my last contingent about COVID culture in the post-pandemic world, again, this isn't just a trend, and we're not just basing this off of COVID and how it's changed our lives, but in the future going forward, everything's going to become more digital. And so just because we're basing this off of physical ability of a sport, we shouldn't be barring esports from the Olympics because, you know, as I've mentioned, chess is a sport. You know, there's things like hunting and curling where they don't require as much as a physical presence or physical exertion, but those are sports in the Olympics. And so to get into some of my voters today, my first voter is the Wang mechanism also. So what's best for the Olympics? This would be what's best for the Olympics because, again, it creates longevity, it gives them money, it gives them more viewers in the long run. And my second voter is the goal of the Olympics. So the goal of the Olympics is to have, you know, international competition and cooperation and peace among nations so that they can compete in good sport and fun. And so esports would accomplish that mission. And that's why I strongly encourage a vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Zavon and Daniel and Janice for giving us some insight into the really hard work you all do at the Jefferson State speech and debate team. Now we move on to our second program of the evening. And this group of presenters will be from the Wingspan Literary Arts Journal here at Jefferson State Community College. And I'd like to welcome back Katie Boyer, who is an instructor of English at the college and the sponsor and editor of Wingspan. Katie?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. I join Dr. Rilia and Mr. Alexander in celebrating the fact that you're here. We've got a very nice crowd this evening, and that's always great to see. So I've just put in the chat a link to Wingspan Literary and Arts magazine. The print copies of the magazine came to me for the first time today. So those will be in circulation at the various campuses soon. Those of you who contributed to Wingspan, those magazines will be coming to you in the mail by the end of the week. So I just wanted to give some thank yous to the folks who make the magazine possible before I bring up some contributors to share their work and to discuss it with you. So Wingspan's mission is to showcase and to celebrate the creative work of members of the Jeff State community. And that could take the place of written art like poetry, personal essays, journalism, short stories, dramatic presentations. We've even had a stand-up comedy piece, a sketch comedy piece that has been published in the past. So we could publish writing. We also publish a lot of visual art, so photography, painting, sketch, collage, pretty much anything that you can create, we're going to attempt to find a place for it in our magazine. So those of you who are here tonight, if you haven't ever considered contributing to Wingspan, take a look at the online magazine and feel free to get in touch with me if you'd like to contribute something for next year's issue. I would like to thank the Departments of Communication at both the Jefferson and the Shelby campus because their financial sponsorship makes it possible for us to offer the magazine free of charge to contributors and to those who are around to pick up a copy. And I would also like to thank the members of our editorial committee. Wingspan is also sponsored by Sigma Kappa Delta, which is the English Honor Society for two-year colleges. And the officers and sponsors help to make the selections for each year's magazine. This year, I'd especially like to thank Jacob Melvin, who's one of the SKD advisors at the Pell City campus, and then also students Alyssa Bailey and Erica Hooper, who are chapter officers this year. They were really great in helping us pick out the works that you're going to see in the magazine. And I'd also like to thank art instructor Patrick Mayton at the Shelby campus, who has his students send us work all throughout the year. So we have, I believe, 25 people who are either on the panel or who are in attendance tonight who have made a contribution to Wingspan. So I'd like to especially thank you guys for sharing your work with us and for making this magazine possible. So now I would like to bring on some contributors to the magazine who have volunteered to share their work with us. And first I'll bring on Camilla Avery, who is an art instructor, and her pieces are on both the front and the back of this year's magazine.
Good evening. My name is Camilla Avery, and I will be discussing two paintings that I created. The first is entitled Ascension, and this particular piece is oil on wood panel. It's about 4 feet by 5 feet. I generally like to work very large. I will use a model and photographs as well as costumes for the models when I create the particular pieces that are figurative in nature. This piece is also biblically based. So it is based on the emotion, though, or the feeling personal to me involving that particular scripture. The scripture that I take from is the ascension of Christ 40 days after the resurrection in the presence of 11 apostles. However, since this piece is personal to me, I chose the model and he's in the presence of Mary. We don't see Christ, he's already ascended, but I wanted to convey the idea or the emotion of ascension or ascending. So Mary holds a cloth where the body is absent, but she's looking up to what I've created, a sense of light, if you look in the upper right panel of the particular piece. The second piece that I contributed is called MLK, and of course that stands for Martin Luther King. This particular piece is also personal. It's also large. It is a diptych, meaning 2 panels. It is oil on canvas. The panels are attached. And the particular piece comes out of a conversation that I had with a friend about what were you doing or what do you remember of MLK? Of course, we all, because he's such an iconic figure, have or know of his speeches. We may have seen videos about Martin Luther King, but what do you know of him personally? I don't have much of a recollection, but I do remember, and I guess I'm telling my age here, that as a young girl, I was in kindergarten on the day that they had his funeral. I don't remember the day he was assassinated, but I do remember the funeral because my kindergarten teachers were trying to watch the funeral on a black and white television and trying to get a clear picture as they adjusted the antenna on the black and white television. So I remember the chair, I remember the television, I remember the kindergarten floor, and for some reason I remember a lot of black and I remember umbrellas. So I put together those images to create the piece, the feeling of sadness that day, but I changed the chair because I didn't feel that the chair that was present at the time symbolized MLK. I chose more of a chair that you would see in a church or in a pulpit, more of a kingly chair, and that is sort of alluding to King's last name. So this particular piece, I tried to create or recreate the emotion, the feeling of sadness of the day, the memory that I have of that sad day. I'd like to thank Ms. Boyer for allowing me to share my work with you and to share my feelings about my work.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Avery, and thank you for sharing these beautiful, rich color pieces with us. I'm proud to have those on the covers of our magazine. So next I'd like to invite Jasmine Flowers to read her poem, When the End Breaks.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jasmine Flowers, and I'm reading my poem, When the End Breaks. When the end breaks, you will hear the wind crying. When the end breaks, the mothers will squeeze their children in half. When the end breaks, 2 and 2 will be the sum of all things. When the end breaks, nothing will ever be enough. When the end breaks, the trees will stand tall and listen. When the end breaks, I will open my mouth for shelter. When the end breaks, 30 years will go by and won't change. When the end breaks, the noise will be white against the all black. When the end breaks, the ghost will say it wasn't so bad. When the end breaks, I will shed one tear and no more. When the end breaks, so will hell's womb and you. When the end breaks, so will the levees and the chains. When the end breaks, something inside will split into nothing. When the end breaks, there will be nothing left to end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. Next, we have another poet, Victor Ivanov, who will be reading Working Man's Ramble.
Greetings and salutations, ladies, gentlemen, and gentle persons. Tonight I'm going to present to you my poem, Working Man's Ramble. I thought about it and wrote it while I was at work. I am a master technician at Mercedes-Benz US International. So as you can imagine, like most mechanics, I like to get my hands dirty and turn wrenches and get a little angry at the car sometimes. So this is just one way that I like to express myself. Working Man's Ramble. Came in here, head full of emotion. Pick up my tools and channel it to manual motion. Working hands till they crack and need lotion. Ready for a break and a cup of that brewed bean potion. Well, enough of my commotion. Work's just a little quid pro quo. My hard labor for some of that dough. But I know you're knowing, as long as the time clock tick-tocks, we all gotta keep going. All right, well, I wanna thank everybody for making it tonight, and a special thanks to Katie and Zach for hosting us. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have another visual artist who is going to be discussing a couple of pieces. Iana Boykins is going to talk about Plant Girl and Nightmare Lady, which for me is just a wonderful symbol of 2020.
Hello, my name is Iana Boykins. I'm here to discuss my artworks, the the Nightmare Lady, and the Plant Girl. I'll start with the Plant Girl. I've had this idea in my head since 2019. It was, I was taking a bus, I was coming home from school on the bus, and I thought to myself, what if you could grow people? That's a random thought, but like, it's a random and a whimsical thought, but I like whimsical and strange things. I couldn't get this thought out of my head, so I decided to draw it. Since that day, I've been drawing plant-themed people, and I plan on making a series of plant people. Moving on to the Nightmare Lady. As the name suggests, I got the idea from a nightmare I had. The drawing depicts the woman that I saw in my dream. Similar to the Plant Girl drawing, I had to draw it out because it was so unique. I made a few tweaks to the lady's appearance. In the dream, she was pink, but it doesn't really matter. To conclude, I plan on making more drawings similar like this. I'm inspired by surrealism and cartoon and drawing cartoons, so I combine them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayana, for giving us some insight into your dream life and the way you visualize people and their growth. Next, we're going back to a poet. Miss Marita Ward is going to read a prose poem called Greatness.
That's what I'm doing. Oh, you don't have to put your name down. Okay. Good evening. My name is Marita Ward. I am so pleased to be here tonight. This is such an exciting event to be a part of. She stopped my video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Very good. Good evening. I am Marita Ward, and this is such an honor and such an exciting moment to be a part of this event. I am a poet. I have written a book, my first book of many to come, and it's titled Focus on Being Good, Great Comes Later. I will be reading a prose from the book, and the prose is titled Greatness. There is greatness in me. I can feel it. I can see it. I can taste it, and I ain't gonna let it go. There is greatness in me to be whatever I can dream to be. Big dreams of being with people with big dreams. People who inspire me, encourage me. People who succeed in their greatness. People who know the possibilities of no limits, no dead ends, no boundaries, no doubts, just assuredness of their completeness. To conquer what seems like an imminent failure, not letting others bring you to their limits, not compromising myself for anything less than I should be, not giving in to someone else's dull, drab, dark lifestyle. I have greatness in me, and I ain't gonna let it go. My age does not matter. My skin tone doesn't either. The length of my hair is of no contest. The depth of my education is not the issue. Where I live or where I come from cannot and will not hinder me. My parents' background, my ancestors' history, my ancestors' history cannot stop me. Only I can stop me, and I ain't gonna let me even stop me. I was made to lead. I was created to succeed. I was designed to be a blessing to someone like me. I know I am anointed for this. I believe everything I touch cannot miss. My huge dreams are but a drip in a bucket to my Creator. They seem huge to me. Sometimes they seem so far away and unreachable. Sometimes they seem like impossibilities, but I ain't gonna let them go. My God is taking care of me even as I write this down. He's giving my creative voice a sound. So loud in my spirit do I hear, go for it. Girl, you just don't know what greatness I have in store for you. That same sentence I hear just about every day, especially in the early morning when my mind is clear and free of things going on in this world. I want to stay in that realm, but I have to get up and get going to face what the day will bring. But in the course of each day, an opportunity comes, either big or small, that makes me recognize and remember my huge dreams. Dreams of starting a successful business, writing best-selling books, being a real estate mogul, investing in someone else's dreams, and letting the world know I contributed to its growth, its goodness, its health. Oh yes, I was created for this. I can smell it. I can see it. I can taste it. I was once told by a wise minister of God, if you can see it, you can have it. I have it. And I don't need to focus on anything else but the greatness in me. I cannot allow anything to separate me from the knowledge of the light of the world, and I ain't gonna let it go. I am salt, full of flavor, full of preservation, full of greatness. Watch out, because here I come. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that very powerful reading. Next up, we have a presenter who is working on what we're going to have to create as a Lifetime Achievement Award for contributing to Wingspan. This is her third year to be published in the magazine and her third year to present at the Evening of Performance. So I'd like to bring up Alexis Kay, who has a poem and a photograph called Gazing into the Darkness Engulfed by the Sea.
Well, thank you. This is always so much fun. That would be awesome if we could have a Lifetime Achievement Award. So my name is Alexis Kay, and I will be reading my poem, Staring into the Darkness Engulfed by the Sea. And this picture that my mom took, Angela Kay, she took this picture of me, and this sort of, to me, just perfectly visually represented what this poem sort of talks about. So here we go. And as I stare into the darkness, I must fight with every part of me not to focus on the things I keep hidden there and the words that echo within it. And as I step into the sea, I must watch where my feet land to keep from getting swept away by my own insecurities that threaten my life like a thief holding a gun to my head. The darkness is not stronger than I am. Its emptiness only gives off that facade. The darkness is not limitless. It only seems to never end because someone forgot to add wood to the fire that brings light to the world. But before I can add the wood and defeat the darkness, I must accept that this is a necessity, and that I must fight to keep the fire alive and the darkness away. The sea cannot sweep me away because it has a master greater than my insecurities, and he walks beside me through the darkness and the sea. So as I stare into the darkness and am engulfed by the sea, I will breathe the breath of peace and love for the beauty within the darkness and the sea that I fight to hold on to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis. I'll get back with you on that Lifetime Achievement Plan. Next, we have another poet, Amy Allen Pierce, who will be reading her work, Don't Fall.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Don't fall. Don't fall, you'll lose your mind. Don't fall, it's not worth the time. Don't fall when you're made of glass. Don't fall, it'll never last. You're not the same, it's all in vain. You play the game, and it begins again. Don't fall, you're losing focus. Don't fall, what's the purpose? Don't fall, I tried to warn you. Don't fall, the truth will haunt you. You're not the same, it's all in vain. You play the game, it begins again. Don't fall, eyes wide open. Don't fall, you're not the chosen. Don't fall, where's the glue? Don't fall, you know what to do. You're not the same, it's all in vain. You play the game, it begins again. Don't fall, you'll never win. Don't pretend, we're not friends. Don't feel, it isn't real. Don't forget, you'll wear the hit. You're not the same, it was all in vain. You played the game, never again. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I really like how you play with repetition and variation in that poem. Another thing that I really enjoy about working with Wingspan and with the Evening of Performance is getting to see the creativity from people in so many different areas of the Jeff State community. So far tonight, we've heard from students and faculty and members of the community, and I'd like to next bring on another faculty member, Marisa Hamilton, to read her poem, My Wonderful Surprise.
Good evening, everyone. I'd first of all like to say I'm honored to be reading this poem amongst such great authors. I've enjoyed this tonight, and last year around this time, this poem was actually created, so I want to start. I never saw the chair. I never saw despair. I looked into your eyes, and acceptance was my surprise. You always welcomed me home and always said goodbye. Up to that final day, you were my rock in every way. I know you're better now, but that doesn't heal the pain. Faith shaken, but not destroyed, as I continue my journey with this void. See, I'm a mother giving birth to one, but carrying four for the rest of my life. 3 still roaming here on earth, 1 on heaven's cloud. Now, this poem that I just read came because I couldn't find the right words for my stepson's obituary. So I decided to write them myself, because what better person to put into words what he meant to so many people. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for letting us share that with you, Ms. Hamilton. Next, we're going back to a visual artist. Heaven Shepherd is going to talk about her paintings, Sunken and Ship.
Thank you for that introduction, Katie. I do want to go ahead and introduce my paintings. The first will be Sunken, which you will see on your left, and Ship being the one on your right. So a little background of how these came to be an inspiration is I was walking around my boyfriend's home and I saw that they had tons of things representing the ocean, ships, and really anything to do with water. This was something that I wanted to bring into a Christmas gift for him and his father, which then led to me painting these different images on just a regular sized piece of canvas. So Sunken and Ship are both painted with acrylic, some that I've mixed with water to blend a little bit easier. These were very specific to my boyfriend and his father. I wanted to make them very personal and make it feel like I had a connection with them and the paintings that I painted for them. I do want to talk a little bit of a background with my paintings and where I started painting. So first off, I have grown up with my grandparents my entire life, and my grandmother is an amazing artist. She paints portraits, scenes, and many other different things, and that's where I got my inspiration from a very young age of painting alongside her, along with painting my own paintings to give to friends and family members, along with wanting to hang them up in my own home to represent what I learned from them. So I've been doing this for probably about 10 to 12 years, ever since I was very young. I started out with simple paintings such as hummingbirds, flowers, birdhouses, leaves, trees, and then I worked my way up to painting custom ceramic pieces to sell on Etsy that people wanted to buy from us, along with making jewelry and other pieces, which led me to wanting to paint murals on my walls, which I did with my grandmother, to painting things such as this. And I am currently also working on 2 other paintings, and I will want to mention those as well. One being of one of my friend's dogs, a small beagle, a cute little animal that she wants to have hung up in her home, something personal and unique. And another from a very close friend of mine of her home being covered in snow, a very beautiful landscape that I want to give to her as well. So with that being said, yes, I'm very proud to be here along with many other amazing creators, and I hope someday that I can inspire somebody else to do this that I am doing as well.
Thank you for that background, Heaven. It's really nice to hear what painting means to you and to your family life. So the last presenter for Wingspan this evening is a poet named Stephen James Ward. And if one of our presenters is winning a Lifetime Achievement Award, Mr. and Mrs. Ward are probably going to get a certificate for being the first married couple that we've ever published. So I'll turn it over to him.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, okay. Sir. Coming through.
I am deeply honored. I wrote this particular piece under the style of writing that I've created called Poet Ledge, which is poetry with knowledge. I want to thank God, I want to thank Wingspan, and I want to thank Ms. Boyer, and I want to thank you people for allowing me this opportunity to express myself. So this particular piece was written in 2018. It's called Take Me Back. Take me back in time when Obama was the president, and people were proud and stood tall wherever they went and among whom they met. They were proud to be a person of color in this here America. Now take me back to the March on Washington and civil rights. That's an era where people were beaten but willing to fight with all their might. Take me back to the Harlem Renaissance era, the roaring 20s where the Cotton Club and 42nd Street was the place to be. Folks had businesses and began to form legacies for their family. Now take me back, way back, before slavery and Willie Lynch. Way back, before Thurgood Marshall and Frederick Douglass was on the bench. A time when Marcus Garvey preached, let's go back to Africa. Now take me back to the time of the original man, a time before the Egyptians dwelled and thought they conquered the land. A time before the Egyptians thought they conquered the land, to a time of ancient pre-dynastic civilizations, a time before the pyramids ruled and enslaved a nation, a time before Timbuktu and the Babylonians ruled, a time before Isis, Hannibal, the Almoravids, and the Assassins ruled, a time when mystics, scholars, kings, and queens ruled, a time before ancient Kemet. We were and still are mathematicians, astronomers, architects, engineers, teachers, explorers, inventors, and we still believe in the Most High God, a time when people did not murmur and complain, a time when no hatred ruled the land. Thank you.
Great, thank you so very much. Thank you to all of you who contributed to Wingspan and who were willing to share your work. I'm also going to put my email address in the chat if anyone would like to submit next year.
Thank you all for that great performance, all of our artists and readers of some really terrific works there for Wingspan. And thank you, Katie, as well for putting all of that together. Now our final part of our program is represented by Ms. Leslie Warren. She is the theater instructor here at Jefferson State Community College and the sponsor advisor for the Spotlight Drama Club. They do a terrific job, and I'm looking forward to seeing their performance this evening. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Thank you. And hi, as Mr. Alexander said, I'm Leslie Warren, theater instructor and drama club advisor. You notice I have a fun little background here because my students and I have been playing for the last several months with green screens and doing Zoom plays and all of that fun stuff. First off, we want to say thank you to Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ryla, and of course, Ms. Boyer for including the drama club in the Evening of Performances. This is our third year participating, I believe. And I'm just so grateful that we get the opportunity to perform alongside so many talented artists. So without too much exposition, what I do in my theater appreciation course is students all write original plays that are between 3 and 5 minutes long. I get their permission to edit them. And for this semester, of course, there was a lot of editing that had to be done because we had to edit for this particular platform, for Zoom, as opposed to an actual theater. But we've got 3 student plays that were written within the last year, and I'm actually really proud of them, and I can't wait for you to see them. So I'm going to pop in between each one just to kind of set the scene, and then I'm going to let my students who have been rehearsing for the last couple of weeks take over. So first off, our first play is called The Conductor by Andrew Vogel, and the scene begins with an actor who wakes up in an ethereal dressing room with a shot in his hand.
Where am I? Hello? Sorry, didn't see you there. How did I get here? I was just performing my big monologue and everything went dark. Wait, is this heaven?
Not heaven, not hell.
Then where?
Somewhere in between. You created this stop, though. Your subconscious chose it.
Well, okay, that's cool and all, but I need to get back. Can you send, okay, look, I was in the middle of a really important scene, okay? The audience was just getting into it. My director is gonna be pissed.
I doubt that. Take a moment. Look around you. Tell me, what do you see?
green walls, sofas, a table, the usual green room stuff.
And
You, me, these drinks.
nothing else?
What am I supposed to be looking for?
Answers.
Okay, all right. Why am I here?
You're about to die. Right now, you're lying on the stage with your coworkers and paramedics surrounding you. You collapsed during your big monologue. Maybe don't go full method next time? Well, never mind.
What am I dying from? I felt fine. I felt better than fine.
Doesn't matter. Look, it's okay. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Relax. Enjoy your drink.
Relax. Enjoy. How dare you?
Oh, no. Oh, this isn't me. Your plot was written a long time ago, and your performance of it is over. You can whine and complain about it all you like, but this is your, denouement, if you want to stick to the theatrical themes. Now, you understand the concept of a story, the arc, the climax, and then finally the resolution. Well, yes or no?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I get what a story is. Okay, I'm an actor. I kind of do this for a living. So.
Oh, please. We all know you sell carpet for a living. But there's no need to dwell on the details. Your story or script is on its last page or final act, if I'm to play to my audience. The final stage directions, your last moments as an individual before all that's left of who you were is what's written on those pages. But that's okay. There's nothing left for you to do but make peace.
No. I won't. I'm not finished. Okay, there has to be a way back. What do I have to do? Anything. Just tell me.
There is nothing. You will cease to exist when this conversation ends. I have no control over this. No one does. That's what makes it so unbelievable to most people. You cannot control your fate nor anyone else. But I'm here to guide you to peace.
Well, I don't believe it. Okay, no, I'm no. You're just some lunatic in some weird hat. Okay, if you know so much, prove it.
Fine. Your best friend Doug will die April 23rd, 2054, and your first dog Charlie passed away January 3rd, 1998.
Okay, all right. I call bull. Okay, anybody could have asked my mom when Charlie died, and that's a total guess for Doug's death.
Okay. How about this? See, when you were 12 years old, you stole a pack of your mother's cigarettes. Winston Lights. You stole them to make sure the other kids thought you were cool. Your mother knew it was you, but you thought you had gotten away with it.
Okay, lucky guess. All right, a lot of kids do stuff like that, so.
Okay, if I must. How about a little show of my own? I created it just for you.
What are you talking? One way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you one way or another. Okay, so what, you're like a musical Mephistopheles or something? What, are you gonna get me to like sell my soul now?
Oh geez, were you performing in Dr. Faustus on Earth? No, I'm not the devil, or one of his little minions. As I already said, I'm your guide. I have no agenda and stand to gain or lose anything. That's it. Take a moment. Take it all in.
Where will I go?
Nowhere and everywhere. You will not be in pain, but you won't jaunt through the clouds either. Once your curtain closes, that's it. There's nothing else.
So like there isn't really like a heaven or a hell?
No, I didn't say that. This is where your story ends. It's your own ending. If you had believed in heaven or hell, then perhaps you would have ended up in one of those places. But you believed in nothing. So that's where you'll go.
So my soul.
You didn't believe in one of those either.
Okay. All right. Okay. I get it. I accept it, but can I just do one more performance before I go?
Oh, I suppose that would be fine. I'm in no rush.
Okay. Well, I never got to play this role, but I always wanted to. So.
Bated breath.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the sling.
And scene. Actors. Am I right?
Okay. Yay. I'm giving you applause because y'all did a good job. Great. And thank you to Drew for writing that very interesting piece that is obviously fun for us as theater folks. Our next play is called The Mandatory Hats, which if you get a copy of Wingspan, or if you look at it online, this play, Mandatory Hats, written by Melanie Smith, is actually published in Wingspan this year. So we're going to review that. And while they're changing their backgrounds and a little bit of costuming, I will let you know that the setting is in Masconia, Kosovo, in the year 2030. And in this scene, a mother and a son are walking down the street, and they happen to notice some flyers hanging on the windows of buildings.
Sam, wait a sec. What are these flyers? They're everywhere.
Read it aloud, Mom. I want to know what it says too.
By order of Governor William Wiseman of the great state of Covacino, all persons, great and small, are mandated to wear a green hat when in public spaces? Our sun is getting too hot, and people are getting overheated, sunburned, and suffering sunstrokes, along with various other illnesses. This affects the entire population without prejudice. The hospitals, doctors' offices, and loving members of our communities that must care for the family members and friends affected by these health issues are overburdened. These hats will help prevent more people from getting sick. Therefore, any person found outside of their private homes without a green hat will be fined or imprisoned. The color green is non-gender specific, so there will be no opportunity for gender preference or discrimination. They are purely for your protection.
Holy crap, Mom! We better go right now and get some green hats. I don't want to get sick or cause problems for anybody else. I don't want you or Dad or my brother to get sick. Oh,
You're
man.
right, Sam. We need to get green hats immediately. The sun is out right now. We can't risk it.
Oh, I'm scared, Mom. The sun's hot and my head is getting hot and am I gonna get sick?
I hope not. We're going to find a hat shop and we're going to find green hats for all of us. Hopefully there's not a run on hats.
What do you mean? What does a run on a hat? What does a run mean?
Well, a run means everyone running to the store at the same time to buy the same thing. I remember years ago when you were very young, there was a run on toilet paper.
Toilet paper? Why would there be a run on toilet paper? There's always toilet paper to choose from on like Amazonian, and you got WallyWorld.com too.
Yes, There seems to be an endless supply of toilet paper now. But years ago, there was a virus that made it necessary for people to cover their faces and use endless amounts of hand sanitizer. The toilet paper run was a result of fear. People were afraid that they'd be unable to leave their homes for months, so they stocked up on a lot of unnecessary items, along with tons of canned and frozen pizzas and food. It was actually pretty scary. Grocery store shelves were empty for months.
Did it keep everyone safe?
Well, we all ended up with closets full of toilet paper and way too many frozen pizzas. But the masks and staying at home helped prevent further spread of the virus until we could get a widely distributed vaccine. In fact, many good things came out as a result of the virus.
Like what?
Well, people realized they didn't need to go out as much as they did before.
I'm confused as to what you mean.
You see, before the virus, people drove to and from work every day. They ate out several times a week, and children spent 8 hours a day in school rather than their parents helping them out with online work. Parents just didn't really spend much time with their kids or cook them healthy food.
Why would they do all that? Didn't they have web conferencing or online school or grocery delivery?
See, that's the funny thing. We had all that, but we really didn't use it until we were forced to. Now, working from home, cooking fresh meals, and helping our children with online schoolwork is the norm. It just wasn't always like that, though.
Oh, so it's almost like the virus brought families together?
In a way, yes. We all missed our friends and going out, but we spent more time where we should, at home.
Well, what do you think is going to happen this time? Do you think the hats are going to help?
Well, the hats will either protect us or they won't, but it definitely won't hurt us. So if the governor says we have to wear them, we will.
Look, there's a hat store.
Oh, it's closed. Out of stock. Let's keep looking.
Well, what about that one?
Nope. Also closed. Hey, don't get too upset, son. It'll be okay. We'll find another one.
That makes 2 stores that are closed. There's probably going to be a run on hats. What are we going to do? Are we going to get hats? Are we going to protect ourselves? I don't want to get sick.
Hey, it's okay. Just calm down. Now let's think about what we can do. We need green hats, and all the stores are closed. They probably have had a run on hats. These are the only hat stores in town I know of. We may just have to leave town and go somewhere else to find green hats.
Oh, I have an idea.
Oh yeah? What was it, Sam?
So, do you remember when you made the pirate hat out of newspaper?
Of course I do.
What if we make our own green hats?
That just might work. But what will we make them out of?
Oh, I got it. I've got some green construction paper at home that you bought me for one of my art class projects, and you got that stuff that you spray on them, like you spray on your crafts that'll waterproof them. What if we can make our own hats with those?
That is a great idea. I mean, even if they aren't perfect, we'll be protected long enough to find hats online.
Or we could just keep making our own. It could be our family project each week. We all design and make new hats together and for each other.
That is an absolutely wonderful idea, Sam. Let's get home. We got some work to do.
Mom, what good do you think will come out of this new rule about hats? Do you think we'll actually be safer?
I honestly don't know. Sometimes it's hard to tell until after it's all over.
Well, maybe more people will figure out that they can make their own things, and maybe they'll figure out how to make their own things. They don't have to go to the store to buy everything like they do now.
That would be a really good thing to come from this. people becoming more self-sufficient and less wasteful would be good for everyone.
Yeah, race you home.
Okay, so obviously that's kind of relevant these days, and I appreciate Melanie Smith writing that one for class. Yes, thank you for the chat box and all of the congratulations. So we have one more play to go. It is called Voicemail, and it's going to be a little bit more on the serious side. Sorry, I'm looking at my second screen here. And but I hope you enjoy the performance of it. Voicemail by Rachel Dowd. The scene begins with 2 blank screens, and then we're going to hear a phone call.
Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Hey, friend. Do you remember me? You might not. I mean, it's been what, like 5 years? That's actually why I'm calling you. We left things on a not so happy note the last time we talked, and I was hoping we could reconnect, see where life led us. I think of you a lot. Anyway, clearly you're not available at the moment. Otherwise, you would have picked up. So, at least I hope so. So I'll just leave you this message and leave it at that. Yeah, can't wait to talk to you. Call me back. Bye.
Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna let you have a week or so to get back to me. A few days went by and I can't. I really need to talk to you. I know I'm probably being kind of obnoxious since you didn't respond to my last message. This whole thing is probably kind of pointless, but just call me when you get this. Okay? Please? All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Okay. I know I shouldn't overanalyze things and I should just let you speak for yourself, but I can't. I can't help but thinking that maybe you hate me. God, that sounds really pitiful, doesn't it? It's just after how everything that happened, how the friendship ended. I want to make it right, if that's even possible at this point. Call me when you get this. I really need to talk. There's no justification for what I did. I just I want to explain. I need to. Yeah, call me back. Bye-bye.
Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Remember high school? Those were the good days, huh? We used to always hang out after school and on the weekends, maybe go see a movie or something. God, we're inseparable. Remember Alex? He used to host the best parties. I mean, that dude knew how to have a good time. Am I right? I mean, we always hung out with him because he was so real. You know? I mean, yeah, sure, he can make you laugh when you needed to talk about something. But when you needed to talk about something serious, he was there too. So, yeah, he'd just sit on your porch with you and listen. That's all it took for us to know that he just got it. So, I'm sure you probably put all that behind you, you know. But I don't think I'll ever forget about it, about what we had, what we all had. Okay. Well, I hope I get to talk to you soon. I really need to tell you a few things, and you're the only one I can talk to. So call me when you get this, please. All right, bye-bye.
Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Okay. I know you don't want to talk to me. You don't want to talk to me. If you did, you would have called me back. So I guess I'll just say what I need to say, hang up and cross my fingers. I'll never forget what happened that December. It was a Saturday, and we went over to Alex's house to hang out. His mom was never home because she was always off with one guy or another. And his dad, well, he wasn't in the picture at all. So we're walking up the driveway, and that's when we heard the yelling. And because his mom was home after all, you know, that's kind of messed up. We knew his mom was home without even having to see her car in the driveway. We knew because she was yelling, and Alex was the only person she had to yell at. So I guess she did it a lot. We'd heard before, but this time it seemed worse, like she was extra angry or something. So we heard the yelling, and then we heard the slap. We stopped and looked at each other like, what do we do? I mean, you wanted to knock on the door, but I was afraid, and I stopped you. And because his mom was always so drunk and so mean. Anyway, after a minute of not knowing what to do, I just started to walk away, and you followed me. We didn't knock on the door. We didn't say, "Hey, Alex, want to hang?" or anything. We left, and a couple of days later, we get called in the principal's office, and we kind of freak out, like, "Oh my God, who blew up the teacher's lounge this time?" You know, like something silly like that. And we got called in the office, and we're sitting down there freaking out, not knowing what's going on. And then they told us Alex was gone. And not like he's on vacation gone, or he moved schools or cities or states gone. The kind of gone that you don't come back from. In that moment, everything crashed down on us, and in that moment, time stopped, and I'm not sure it entirely ever started again for me. God, I can't help but think that maybe if I just said something that day we heard the yelling, if I'd opened the door because my hand was right there on the doorknob, or knocked, or called the damn police. I don't know. Maybe if I'd done something other than run, that Alex would still be around. I know you probably put all that behind you because you didn't do anything wrong and you wanted to help. And you were following my lead after, and you know what? It makes sense now. I wouldn't want to talk to me either. I just wanted to say, and I'm sorry I ran out on everybody. After what happened, I didn't want to deal with the aftermath, so I ran. And I know 2 little words are nothing like putting a Band-Aid over a stab wound, but I mean it. I'm sorry for everything. I miss him so much, and I miss you too. Call me. Hello?
Hey.
Okay, good. Thank you guys so much. And thank you to Rachel Dowd for writing that for us. Real quick, I know we're 5 minutes over time. You 3 join in and give a wave. You get your curtain call. Thank you, Ivy Lee Smith. Thank you, Hayden Coker. Thank you, Austin Lucas, for being awesome. And let's turn off our videos and turn it back over to Mr. Alexander, but great job.
Terrific job. Thank you all that were part of those performances for the Spotlight Drama Club. In closing tonight, I'd like to thank you all for taking time to take part in our virtual event, presenters and audience members. And sincere thanks to my colleagues at Jefferson State, Leslie Warren, Katie Boyer, who also ran the tech front tonight. So thank you for that, as well as Janice Rauya. These are three great organizations, and if you're interested in being a part of them, please contact those wonderful colleagues of mine, our faculty members and sponsors for each of them. I know they would love to bring you more information about their respective terrific organizations that have added so much to our college over the years. Also, if you are in the audience tonight for credit for a class, please inform your instructor or remind your instructor to contact Ms. Boyer about getting a list so that they can confirm such credit for any class participation. In closing, thank you all again for a wonderful evening of performance, and have a good night.